Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. This is Shyam here, taking up the Hindu news analysis for 25th December 2025. Now, before I start the session, please do give me the confirmation that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Those present in the session, please give the confirmation. Done. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, for today's session, I've taken a total of 10 articles, all of them from the Hindu newspaper daily edition. The discussion will be comprehensive in order to help you answer the questions in the prelims as well as mains examination. If you're liking this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Now, before I start the session, here is a very important announcement. All our Unacademy courses right now are available at a discounted price of 55%. Whatever is the price displayed on the website, use the code IAS English. You will receive 55% discount on all our courses. In addition to this, you'll also get a double validity. That is, if you purchase the courses for a period of 6 months, additional 6 months will be free of cost added by us to you. If you get the course for 9 months, additional 9 months. Same for 12 months. In addition to all of this, you will also be covered under CSE Assure. If you do not clear the exams, then your next attempt will be on us. Those interested in enrolling, check the details by clicking on the link provided in the description. Let me begin the discussion. The first article, New Labour Codes, the threats to informal workers. Before I start the session, or start the discussion, I know a lot of you have seen the newspaper. Some of you look at the editorial page and say, "Sir, there is an article on Manrega." I have not taken the article on Manrega because it has been discussed multiple times in the last couple of days. That's a reason. So, new labor codes, the threats to informal workers. Now, what are the important points? Let's try and understand. The government of India very recently notified the 4 new labor codes. The new labor codes have been notified by the government. And in the context of the 4 new labor codes, the labor codes cover occupational safety. There is a labor code for wages. There is a labor code for industrial relations, etc. Totally 4 labor codes. Now the 4 labor codes essentially cover mostly the people from organized sector. They by default cover the people who are working in the organized sector. What do you mean by organized sector? Generally, there is a term organized, unorganized. For example, if you are a software engineer who is working in a company full time, you are part of a organized sector. If you have a contract with the worker, contract in the sense where there is a employment agreement, you are a full time worker, salary is fixed every month for you, you're basically part of organized workforce. But please understand, when you compare organized with unorganized, organized against unorganized, most of the workforce in India falls under unorganized. For example, people who are working under the gig economy, people who are contractual workers, all of them are part of unorganized workforce. Now, how much of the total labor force in India falls under the unorganized? Around 90% of the total labor force is unorganized. The problem with the 4 labor codes, I'll list out the issues as identified, as pointed out in the article. Let's do the critical evaluation now. The issues with these particular 4 labor codes is the fact that it is by default applicable to workers under the organized sector. And in many cases, the unorganized workers by default are not covered. I repeat, by default are not covered under the codes. What do you mean by default? You'll have to notify. The government has to notify. There has to be an enabling provision in order to cover the people who are working in the unorganized sector. This is the first very important concern that has been raised in the article. Second very important concern, there were multiple guidelines which are already applicable in the unorganized sector. For example, in construction work, there is a set of guidelines that has been mentioned here that is covered under the Building and Other Construction Workers Act, BOCW, Building and Other Construction Workers Act. Now, listen to me very carefully. The unorganized workers are working in different industries. It could be in BD industry, it could be in construction, it could be right in agriculture, etc. Right now, the practice is that different pieces of legislation, different guidelines are announced by the government in order to cover them. One example is the BOCW Act. And if you ask me, sir, should I remember all these acts, all the provisions? Not necessary. Understand the overlying features. Right now, the BOCW Act is there. Under that, around 190 guidelines are there, which have been announced, which have been implemented in order to cover the workers who are working in the construction work, that is real estate work. There is, right, this kind of a protection in terms of, let's say, what should be the work nature, what should be the safety guidelines, etc. That has been announced separately. But the concern that has been raised by the writers in the article is that these separate guidelines, once they have been announced under, right, let's say the 4 labor codes, these separate set of laws, these separate guidelines have not been completely covered. These have been omitted, not been completely covered, which means the protections which were available to these kind of unorganized workers earlier, these kind of protections will not be available anymore. This is the second concern. Everybody is okay with the first and second? Please do let me know. The first one is that majority of the workforce is unorganized. Huge contribution to the GDP comes from unorganized, more than 60%. But they are by default not covered under the labor laws or the labor codes like it is covered for organized sector. Second one is different guidelines or the laws which were earlier available to protect these unorganized workers. These have not been completely covered, subsumed under the new labor codes. The third concern which has been raised is the concept of self-reporting. Self-reporting. What is this idea of a self-reporting? Listen to me carefully. Under the earlier system, under the labor laws, the central government had multiple labor laws. In order to ensure that the companies or the employers will follow the labor laws, there was a concept of inspection. Is everybody okay? There was a concept of inspection. That is, the labor inspector would come to the, let's say, manufacturing facility and just check whether the company is abiding by all the guidelines or not. The government, in order to promote the idea of ease of doing business, has done away with the concept of inspection. Now there is a new portal which has been proposed under the labor codes. All the companies or the employers will have to report themselves. They'll have to self-report stating that they are abiding by all these guidelines. The concern is that what if some of these particular guidelines are violated? For example, what if certain guidelines associated with minimum wages are violated? What if certain, right, let's say the rules and regulations which were supposed to be implemented in order to provide protection to the unorganized workers are violated? You have done away with the concept of inspection. So who will be checking whether these rules, regulations, norms, etc. are implemented in the correct way in order to protect unorganized workers? The focus is unorganized workers. That is the third concern. Fourth very important concern is multiple cesses which were earlier applicable have been withdrawn by the government. Now what kind of cesses I am talking about? Listen to me very carefully. Earlier, there were multiple cesses in the form of building and other construction workers cesses. That is under the Act of 1976. There was a Salt Cess Act under the law, under the 1953 Act. There was, right, there was also workforce, the Workforce Welfare Cess Act for BD workers. For BD workers. That is essentially which was implemented back in 1976. Just make a correction. BOCW 1996. BOCW 1996. the BD Workers Cess Act 1976. And before you simply say, sir, move away, I want to take down the notes, etc., don't worry. After the session is over, the PPT will be uploaded, you can download it. So argument of the writers is simple. These cesses were implemented, the money was collected, and the money was used to provide welfare to the BD workers. So to the salt workers, right, to the workers who are right basically working in the construction or real estate, etc. Now these particular cesses have been withdrawn by the government, and there is no other cess which has been put in place of these particular cesses. And the object of these cesses is very simple. You impose the cess, collect the money, use the money for specific purposes, that is to provide protection to the workers covered, to provide welfare to the workers covered, to provide health care to the workers covered, to provide education to the children of the workers covered, etc. So argument is very simple. Different cesses were earlier there. Now under the labor codes as well as under the GST law, most of these particular cesses have been subsumed, have been withdrawn, have been abolished by the government. So where is the other kind of protection provided in place of these particular cesses which were collected and basically used to provide welfare to the workers? And final concern, fifth very important concern raised in the article is the dismantling of welfare boards. Dismantling of welfare boards. In a nutshell, for the unorganized sector workers working in different sectors, different industries, there were welfare boards set up. Negotiations were conducted with the state government and different kinds of protections were provided through the welfare boards. Now, under the new labor codes, there will not be multiple welfare boards, rather there will be only one welfare board. Is the point clear? No multiple welfare boards, only one welfare board for all the unorganized sector workers. The concern raised by the writers is, how can one welfare board take care of the different issues faced by different workers working in different sectors or different industries? And as a result of this kind of a provision under the new labor code, many of the state governments have proposed to abolish welfare boards right now. And some of the states have already stated, for example, state of Tamil Nadu, state of Kerala, they have stated that they will not be implementing these kind of labor code provisions and they will have a different set of regulations to protect the welfare boards. So these are some of the concerns raised by the writers in the article here. Anybody has a problem associated with this particular article, do let me know. And before I go forward, let's do the balancing work. Balancing work in the sense, do we require the labor codes? Do we require the labor codes? Of course, yes. But the concern is not about the requirement of the labor codes. The concern is something else. We require labor codes in order to harmonize the labor laws in India, in order to do away with the old labor provisions, in order to have a balance between the protection of workers as well as promotion of ease of doing business. Yes. But at the same point of time, the concern is some of the provisions are not in the interest of the workers. That is one. Second biggest grievance against these particular labor codes is that before introduction or notifying the labor codes, the government of India should have convened the labor conference, Indian Labor Conference. It has been more than a decade that the government of India has not convened a labor congress. It should have convened that particular the trilateral grouping and discussed before the notification of these particular labor codes. Right, so these are certain important points. Now, based on the discussion that I've done, please take up a descriptive answer writing practice. Unorganized workers constitute over 90% of India's workforce, yet remain weakly protected under the labor legislation. Analyze the paradox. Analyze the paradox. Okay, so this is the practice question for you. Now, here is the MCQ. Please solve the MCQ and tell me, right, what is the answer to this particular MCQ? Consider the following statements. The labor subject falls in the union list under the Schedule 7 of Indian Constitution. India is a founding member of International Labour Organization. India has ratified all the conventions of International Labour Organization. What is the right answer? Quickly tell me. The labor subject falls in the union list under the Schedule 7 of the Indian Constitution? No. this doesn't fall under the union list. In fact, it falls under the concurrent list. That's the reason you will see state governments also formulating labor laws and right the central government also formulating labor laws. Anushka Singh says a state list. No, my dear, it is in the concurrent list. India is a founding member of International Labour Organization. The reason I've given this particular statement is in the article, the writers simply say many of these particular provisions under the new labor codes are violating the ILO conventions. Many of these are violating the ILO conventions where in fact India is a signatory. So is India founding member of ILO? Yes, ILO was established in 1919. Yes, this statement is true. India has ratified all the conventions of International Labour Organizations? Absolutely no. No, India has not ratified all of them. Around 47 of the conventions of ILO out of 190 plus, around 47 have been ratified by Government of India, not all of them. The second statement is correct. How many of the above three are correct? Option A is the right one. Okay, let me go forward now. Magnetic movement, rare earths and green transition. And there is a very nice article given on the issue of rare earths in India. Now listen to me very carefully. If you look at the rare earths in terms of, right, let's say the importance of the rare earths, right now you can understand the rare earths looking at three very important, or let's say the congruence of three important sets. I'm just talking about CSAT now, three sets. Basically, when you look at, right, let's say the geopolitics, the concept of geopolitics, the concept of industrial policy, and the idea of the protection of environment. The idea of protection of environment. You will see at the center of all the three sets, you will see that there is an important role played by the critical minerals. What do you mean by this? Take for example, India. In one of the sessions earlier that I've taken, I discussed one very important initiative. I hope all of you remember this. The REPM initiative. Again, I'm saying this is not the first time I'm discussing this. I've already discussed this, I think in the 27th November, the CNA or the news analysis. The Government of India very recently has announced the REPM initiative, the production of rare earth permanent magnets. What was the reason behind the announcement of this initiative? Very recently, if you have been following, and I'm pretty sure all of you have been following this, the rare earth magnets or the permanent magnets have become a weapon in the hands of the Chinese authorities. They have been using the negotiations or the imposition of restriction on the rare earth permanent magnets to hold other countries to ransom, to negotiate with other countries, be it India, be it USA, or be it any other developed country. For a very simple reason, China accounts for more than 90% of the total production of these rare earth critical minerals. That is the reason the article simply says the rare earths right now are center of three very important aspects: the geopolitics, the industrial policy, as well as the protection of environment. Because the argument is, if you want to produce, let's say, electric vehicles, you want to have production capacity, you will have to have production of critical minerals. You'll have to have access to critical minerals. And this is not just applicable to the idea of a production which will contribute to growth, employment, etc. Production of electric vehicles will also help in meeting the very important goal of net zero emission by 2070. And this particular issue now has become a problem because of the geopolitics. The concern here is in the run to, or in the race to achieve self-reliance, in the race to become self-reliant in terms of, let's say, critical minerals, are we taking the same path which was taken by earlier other countries when there was, right, let's say, production of crude oil? In simple terms, when you produce too much of a crude oil, there is certain environmental cost associated with that. No doubt, it will contribute to GDP, but there is certain environmental cost associated with that. In the same way, in order to achieve self-reliance in critical minerals, will we end up ignoring, let's say, the environmental cost associated with this? What is the meaning of environmental cost? If you talk about, let's say, China Today, they have achieved huge amount of production capacity as well as refining capacity of critical minerals. But this has come at a cost. Cost in the sense there has been a large scale issue associated with pollution in the regions where the production is happening. Many of the labor rights have been violated. Some of the lands or some of the pieces of land have been acquired by force. There is also certain allegations of corruption, etc. So there are certain costs which are associated with promotion of even critical minerals. This is certain very important issue that we need to keep in mind in the race to achieve self-reliance. Second very important point that has been discussed in this particular article is the fact that it is not just sufficient to have only one stage in the overall production cycle. It is not just important to have, let's say, the market leadership at one stage or one phase of the overall cycle. What do you mean by overall cycle? There are multiple stages. There will be mining, there will be refining, there will be exploration, etc. Everybody is able to understand? Just like, let's say, in the electricity, there is a production, generation, then there's a transmission, then there is a distribution. In the context of the critical rare minerals, there will be exploration, there will be mining, there will be refining, etc. In the context of India, right now the government of India, by announcing multiple reforms, for example, the government of India has announced a critical mineral mission, that is National Critical Mineral Mission. In addition to this, just a second, I'll write the full form. National Critical Mineral Mission. In addition to this, the government of India has announced the REPM now. The government of India has announced recycling of the used, right, let's say critical minerals, etc. So multiple initiatives are being implemented by the government of India in order to ensure that India will not just be self-reliant in terms of exploration. It will not just be self-reliant in terms of refining. It will be self-reliant across all the stages. Across all the stages or all the phases in this particular cycle of production as well as utilization of critical minerals. This is a second very important point. In order to achieve that, what should be done? What should be the way forward? The concerns which have been raised by the article or the editorial is simple. Point number one. Right now you want to mine out certain critical minerals. In many cases, these particular critical minerals are available along with certain nuclear material. Along the coast, for example, the Andhra Pradesh coast, or for example, the Odisha coast. So these particular critical minerals are available along with certain nuclear material, for example, thorium. The concern is that thorium, if you want to produce it, if you want to mine it out, etc., it will come under the atomic energy. It will come under the Atomic Energy Act. Now the concern is, if this particular critical mineral lies along with the thorium in these coastal regions, you may have to run to the government authorities multiple times. You may have to get multiple approvals. You may have to go through a very long process, which is a cumbersome, which is a time-consuming process, which involves a lot of paperwork. That is one concern which has been raised by the editorial associated with India, basically trying to become, right, let's say self-reliant in terms of critical minerals. In addition to that, there is also concern associated with the technology. The technology that is available for refining of lot of these particular critical minerals is not very well advanced technology available in India. Right? That is one more concern which has been raised in the article. Third important concern is right now the exploration is given to the Geological Survey of India, GSI. The exploration activities under the National Critical Mineral Mission has been provided. All of this has been provided to the Geological Survey of India. Now there has to be a collaboration. There has to be flow of information regarding the mines which have been prospected, the areas which have been surveyed. The information has to be passed on to the other sector participants as well. So these are some of the concerns which have been raised in the article, which basically argues that there are certain reforms undertaken by the government, but even then there are certain challenges which can hold back India from becoming self-reliant, or let's say in order to become a global hub in the critical energy segment. Done? Everybody is okay? Now associated with this, I've given an MCQ. Please solve it and tell me the correct answer. Consider the following statements regarding the National Critical Mineral Mission. Under the NCMM, ISRO has been assigned with exclusive exploration projects. NCMM promotes self-reliance and aims to eliminate imports of critical minerals by 2047. Which of the two statements are correct? Do let me know the answer very quickly. Yes, what is the correct answer? Nobody wants to answer? Okay. Under the NCMM, ISRO has been assigned with exclusive exploration of the projects. This is incorrect. This is incorrect. It is Geological Survey of India. Geological Survey of India. Okay. NCMM promotes a self-reliance and aims to eliminate imports of critical minerals by 2047. No, it doesn't target elimination of imports. Listen to me carefully. It doesn't target elimination of imports. Let me give you certain points. Please download the PPT, have a look at all of this. Under the National Critical Mineral Mission, right, basic objective is to ensure India's critical mineral supply is satisfied either by importing or by producing in the domestic market. Simple. Either by importing or producing in the domestic market. Right? For example, there is Kabil. All of you heard of Kabil initiative, a joint venture. Kabil will try to get access to the critical minerals along with many things from the external market. In the domestic market, we have IREL, right? So one of the very important objectives is this: ensure stable supply, either by importing or by producing in the domestic market. In addition to this, my suggestion is go through all of these particular points. Go through all of these particular points. You don't have to memorize the numbers here, but please go through all of these particular points so that if at all a question is asked on National Critical Mineral Mission, which was launched by the government in 2025, you will be able to write the answer to this. Okay. Now, in addition to this, one more point associated with NCMM. NCMM focuses on seven very important components. NCMM focuses on 7 very important components. These are the 7 components. A prelims based question can be asked on even this particular, right, let's say the circular table or circular points. Now, everybody is okay with the answer here? Please do let me know. Both the statements are incorrect. Both the statements are incorrect. Right option for the question will be option D. Let me go forward. Next article, Bureau of Port Security, BoPS, Bureau of Port Security. What are the important points? In India, the ports are essentially divided into 2 parts. This is a very important article in the context of internal security. Internal security. Please focus on the discussion. The ports in India are divided into major ports and non-major ports. The major ports come under the regulation of the union government. The non-major ports come under the state government. And because this kind of a fragmented approach is there, you will see in terms of protecting, right, the coastal regions, in terms of giving protection to the inland waterways, in terms of protecting the vessels, that is the ships as well as the ports, you will see same the fragmented approach in terms of providing security. Right? You will have the state government authorities. You will have private, right, agencies. You will have the union government agencies such as CISF, and you will also have Coast Guard. So there is a fragmented approach right now in the context of providing protection to the ports as well as the waterways, the vessels, etc. So the government of India, this is one point. The government of India back in the year 2020 announced the National Maritime Plan. National Maritime Plan. This has been implemented from the year 2021. Under the National Maritime Plan, one of the objectives, there are multiple objectives in order to promote the development of the ports. One of the objectives, the government of India has used that in order to announce the BoPS, Bureau of Port Security. BoPS, Board of Port Security. Board of Port Security is a statutory body. Remember, this can be asked in the prelims. It is a statutory body set up under Section 13 of Merchant Shipping Act. Merchant Shipping Act. Now, what is the role of this board of the ports of security? Right now, like I said, there's a fragmented approach towards providing safety or the guidelines regarding the safety, etc., for waterways, ports, right, etc. Now, under the board of port security or under this particular law, this statutory authority will be made responsible for ensuring same standards will be implemented across India. Same standards will be implemented across India, be it the ports, be it waterways, or be it safety guidelines applicable to the vessels, etc. Same standards will be applicable. And not just this. Under this, the Government of India has notified the CISF, Central Industrial Security Force, as RSO, Recognized Security Organization. RSO or this particular organization will be responsible for ensuring the security across all the ports will be tightened. Same guidelines in the same way, right? Let's say the training will be provided, be it state-owned forces or private, doesn't matter. It will be this which is made responsible for ensuring the safety guidelines or the safety standards are implemented across all the ports. All the ports, I repeat, including the waterways, the guidelines will be implemented across India. And these are very important provisions associated with the Bureau of Port Security. But please understand, there is a concern which has been raised associated with this particular piece of legislation. What is the concern? If you remember, I said right now, the regulation of ports in India is divided between the center as well as the states. In the major ports, it is the central government, and in the non-major ports or the minor ports, it is basically the state government. By introducing this kind of a legislation and by notifying authority which is under the control of the union government as the main authority or the nodal agency for training, for providing security, etc., are we taking the powers away from the state government and are we centralizing the powers? That is a concern which has been raised in the context of the Board of Port Security. Everybody is okay? In addition to this, the article also discusses in what way there has been growth in ports. In what way the number of ports have increased. Right? Let's say percentages have been provided. I don't think so. You will have to remember all of it. Even if you try to memorize it, you will not be able to recollect it when you're writing the exam. For example, have a look at this. The article simply says, in the last decade, the cargo growth has increased from 974 to 1,594 million metric tons. How will you be able to remember it? You can remember the number of major ports. You can remember the exports which have taken place from the ports, etc. But this kind of a data, please don't waste your time. Right? Simply remember important points. Ports, waterways, vessels, everything will be covered. Security aspect of this will be covered under the Bureau of Port Security. Done? Everybody is okay? Now, please solve the MCQ associated with this. Consider the following statements regarding Maritime India Vision. Maritime India Vision. The plan covers time period up to 2047. It was proposed by Ministry of Fisheries. It provides a framework for the holistic development of India's maritime sector, encompassing ports, shipping, but excludes waterways. I have not discussed these particular points because these are not relevant per se to the article. But now, because there is an aspect of National Maritime Plan or the vision, all of these points become important. Okay, what is the correct answer? What is the correct answer? Please do let me know. Only one. 7007 PK says A. Rekha, yes, only one. Again, 7007 PK has shifted the answer. D. Let's start. Consider the following statements regarding Maritime India Vision. Maritime India Vision 2030. Right, Maritime India Vision 2030. The plan covers time period up to 2047. No. Please understand, there is one aspect, the Maritime India Vision 2030. Maritime Amrit Kal 2047. There is also one more proposal of the Union Government, Maritime Amrit Kal, that is 2047. Okay, so this statement incorrect. It was proposed by the Ministry of Fisheries, no Ministry of Ports. It was proposed by the Ministry of Ports. It provides a framework for the holistic development of India's maritime sector encompassing ports, shipping, but excludes waterways. This is incorrect. It includes waterways as well. It includes waterways as well. It doesn't exclude waterways, it includes waterways. All the three statements are incorrect. Right option for the question will be option D, none of the above. Okay, let's go forward. Why manufacturing has lagged in India? Very big article has been provided under text and context page. In this particular article, only 2 points are relevant for you. Only 2 points. First point is, this article has appeared because there is a book which was published very recently. A book by the title, A Sixth of the Humanity. A Sixth of Humanity. This book was published. There are two authors. One is Mr. Devesh Kapoor. And the second one is, you will know this particular person, Mr. Arvind Subramanian. Arvind Subramanian. I'm pretty sure all of you heard of the second person, Arvind Subramanian. If somebody is interested, please read it. It's interested. But if your objective is, sir, will the question be asked in the UPSC mains examination from this book? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. It's a very small book of around 750 pages. If you're interested, read. Otherwise, no. Ignore it. But remember the title, A Sixth of Humanity. These are the two authors. Okay. Now, in this particular book, there is one very interesting discussion that has taken place. Why India's manufacturing has been lagging when you compare it to China, when you compare it to South Korea, right? When you compare it to the similar countries which obtained independence or started emerging at around 1950s, why India's manufacturing has been lagging behind compared to these particular countries. Generally what we discuss is, there is a issue with respect to private sector investment. There is issue in terms of availability of skilled labor. There is issue in terms of investing in, right, let's say the investing in high productivity sectors, etc. We generally discuss a lot of these aspects. But one very interesting discussion has arisen, that is basically the writer or the book says that India has been lagging behind manufacturing sector because of government wages. Listen to me very carefully. Because of government wages. Right? Because of government wages, India has been lagging behind. Now some of you, or wages or salaries, you might simply say wages or salaries. Now some of you will be thinking, sir, how is that possible? How can government salaries hold back India's manufacturing? Listen to me carefully. In economics, there is a concept called as a Dutch disease. In economics, there is this concept called as a Dutch disease. Dutch disease. What does the Dutch disease basically say? In a particular country, if one sector suddenly experiences a windfall, imagine there is a country like this, multiple industries or multiple sectors are there. If one of the industry or sector experiences a windfall, other industries in this country will be affected by this. Everybody is able to understand? I'll explain how. Listen to me very carefully. This concept is important from the article. Apart from this, nothing else is important. I'll repeat it again. There's a concept called as a Dutch disease. It simply says, in a country, if one industry suddenly experiences a boom, windfall. What do you mean by windfall? Windfall essentially means sudden increase in the returns that you're earning because of certain other factors, not because of your planning. I'll repeat the statement. Right? Windfall simply means your earnings suddenly increase because of certain other factors, not because of your planning. I'll just give you one example. The Indian oil refiners in recent times have made huge amount of returns because of Russia-Ukraine war, not because of their planning. And that is the precise reason the government of India had imposed a tax called as windfall tax, which was withdrawn, which was taken back by the union government very recently. But anyways, come back to the discussion here. How can you connect this idea of a Dutch disease to the government salaries in India? And why are we saying that government salaries have held back manufacturing? The argument is very simple. In case of India, not today, before 1990s, the government salaries which were provided was comparatively better. Post 1991, private sector has entered into India. Lot of demand for the skilled labor. Obviously, salaries in private sector today are much better compared to government. But before 1990s, before LPG was implemented, argument was the government job is fixed, guaranteed salary, and because the private sector participation, private sector presence in India was very limited, the government salaries were much better compared to private sector. And this essentially will increase the demand for goods and services. Again, argument is better salary. More salary means more expenditure. More expenditure means more demand for goods and services. And when there is a more demand for goods and services and the domestic market cannot satisfy the demand, automatically the imports will increase. Is everybody okay with the sequence here? The imports will increase. And when the imports will increase, what do you think will happen to the rupee value? The rupee will start, right? Rupee value will start getting affected, right? If imports can be, right? If imports will keep on flowing into India to satisfy the demand, what will happen to the domestic manufacturing? Domestic manufacturing, first and foremost, very small participation of private sector. And because there is a very small participation of private sector, they are not able to supply sufficient quantity or the right quality of the products. If imports will continue to happen, obviously the demand for the domestically produced goods will be taken or will take a hit. The private sector will have a hit. So that is basically the argument which has been put forward, connecting the idea for Dutch disease, right, basically to government salaries before 1991. Is everybody able to understand? There is one more idea as well here. Listen to me very carefully. If there is a very high demand for the labor in the government, by the government itself, lot of people are joining government jobs. In that particular context, can I simply say the labor supply to the other areas, other industries, right, other segments or other sectors will be lower? Is everybody able to understand the logic here? Again, there is a criticism. There are gaps or there are loopholes in all of this. But argument given in the book is labor, most of its skilled labor moved to the government because stable job, guaranteed salary at the end of the month, etc., etc. As a result of this, the skilled labor supply in the private sector took a hit. And the wages, right, the demand for the wages started increasing, and this will not make the industry competitive. Because higher wages means higher cost of production. That will hamper the production activities done by the companies, supply of these products to the global market or let's say in the domestic market. Everybody is okay with the discussion? And before I go forward, if you're wondering, sir, why it is called as a Dutch disease? Why it is called as a Dutch disease and how the windfall in one sector will affect all the other sectors? Here is a very short story. In Netherlands, back in the year 1960s or back in the year 1969, there was suddenly discovery of gas. There was a sudden discovery of gas. And because there was a sudden discovery of gas in Netherlands, the production of natural gas increased. The export of natural gas to the international market increased. Exports started to increase. And the labor supplied to these particular sector, that is the companies which were involved in oil and gas, the labor supplied to these particular sectors increased and supply of labor to other sectors went down. Wages in other sectors went down. Other sectors increased. The national wages started to increase. And because there were high wages paid, the imports also increased. Rather than purchasing from the domestic market, the imports become cheaper. Because in the domestic market, higher wages means higher production cost, higher market prices. So the domestic industry suffered, imports increased, and the labor wages increased. The oil and natural gas companies' performance improved. So performance of one industry increased. They made a huge amount of profits, etc. And other industries, other sectors suffered because of it. This is called as a Dutch disease. Everybody is okay with the concept of Dutch disease here? Can I go forward now? Can I go forward? Just make a correction. I said Netherlands 1969, 1959. Right? The natural gas was discovered or started production in Netherlands in 1959. Okay, right. So this is one more article. Let's go forward. Next article, S&T. LVM-3 BlueBird Block 2. ISRO sends largest commercial communications satellite to orbit. Yesterday, ISRO made history. What is the history I'm talking about? ISRO launched the highest weighted satellite. The launch that was conducted by ISRO was to basically take the highest weight of a satellite by any satellite in India, launch vehicle in India. It carried the highest weight to the lower Earth orbit. LEO, right? It carried the highest weight to the lower Earth orbit. This has been done by ISRO for the first time ever. That is more than 6,000 kgs of weight. Point number one. Point number two. What is the importance of this? This was not the satellite launch by any agencies in India. It was basically a commercial launch. Remember this. It was basically a commercial launch. Commercial launch in the sense, ISRO has a commercial arm, right? The name of commercial arm of ISRO is New Space India Limited. New Space India Limited. The New Space India Limited generally enters into agreements with various other, right, let's say the companies across the globe which want to launch a satellite to a particular orbit. Now, there are multiple agencies around the world. In Europe, there is one supplier. But what has happened is, in recent times, the commercial launches conducted by ISRO have started to increase. This is the third such commercial launch which has been done by ISRO using this launch vehicle. This is the importance. Point number three, it is also important from the context of India. Reason being, until now, whenever we wanted to launch a heavy satellite, right, to let's say the orbits, we used to outsource this launch to other companies or other agencies. For example, European agency. We used to outsource it to the European agencies and other agencies. Now we don't have to go to other agencies. We have the vehicle, we have the, right, let's say launch vehicle, which can take these heavy satellites as well to the orbits. Right, the launch vehicle that has been used in this context is, please remember, the LVM-3. That is Launch Vehicle Mark III. Launch Vehicle Mark III. This is also referred to, or this is also known as GSLV Mark III. GSLV Mark III. It's a three-stage launch vehicle. The first stage is solid. That is basically the fuel used. Right, solid. The second stage is liquid, and the third stage is cryo. Right, so these are certain very important points associated with the article. And if you're wondering, sir, which country's satellite was it? Which company's satellite was it? Basically, it was an American company. AST Space Mobile. AST Space Mobile. It was an American company, AST Space Mobile. And the importance of this particular satellite is that right now the satellites which are used to provide internet to mobile phones, they do not relay the direct communication or do not provide the signals directly to mobile phones. They will send it to the ground stations, and from there the communication happens. The importance of this particular satellite which has been launched now by ISRO is that it will provide direct signals to smartphones. It will provide the internet signals or internet services directly to the smartphones, not through the ground stations. These are certain important points from the article. Everybody is okay? Please do let me know. Now quickly solve the question. Consider the following statements regarding launch vehicle, the launch vehicle Mark III, that is LVM-3. It is a three-stage vehicle with first solid stage and next two liquid stages. It can carry a payload of up to 8,000 kgs in GTO. What is the right answer? 7007 PK says option D. What about others? MVD 4772 also says D. What is the right option? Okay. It is a three-stage vehicle with first solid stage and next two liquid stages. Incorrect. First solid, next liquid, third one is cryo, right? It can carry a payload of up to 4000 kgs, 8000 kgs in GTO. This is also incorrect. GTO stands for geosynchronous transfer orbit. Geosynchronous transfer orbit. Up to 8000 kgs at lower Earth orbit, LEO, lower Earth orbit. 8000 kgs up to LEO, 4000 kgs up to GTO. 4000 kgs up to GTO. Okay. So second statement is also incorrect. Right option for the question will be option D. Right, those who are wondering, those who have already prepared S&T, good. Most of you are answering correctly. Those who are wondering any difference between LEO and GTO, my dear, GTO is at a much higher level. That is more than 36,000 kilometers. LEO generally up to 1,000 kilometers. Okay. Next, Unnao rape case survivor urges national leaders to act to revoke ex-MLA's bail. Now, don't get into the political argument of the article. Focus on what are the important points. What are the important points? Now, listen to me carefully. The Delhi High Court very recently issued or gave a bail to one of the rape accused or rape convicted. Right, he's an ex-MLA coming from a BJP. Don't worry about the political party and the political argument. But what is the reason? How can a person who has been convicted of a rape case of a minor under POCSO be given a bail? This has led to a lot of, right, let's say, criticism against the judicial order. But listen to me carefully. When you read the judicial order, you will realize that it is the bail order. It has been given by the Delhi High Court based on certain technicalities. What do I mean by technicalities? Listen to me carefully now. Under the POCSO, there is section 4 and section 5. Okay, what is the difference between section 4 and section 5? Section 4 under POCSO, if there is somebody who has to be sent to jail, under section 4, they will be sent to jail for a period of up to minimum 7 years. Again, listen to me. Minimum 7 years, which can be extended to life imprisonment. But this was amended by the government back in the year 2019, and from 7 years minimum, it has been made to 10 years now. Now it is at 10 years. Okay, this is point number 1. But if you're a public servant, then you will be punished under section 5 of POCSO, wherein the punishment shall be minimum of 10 years, which can be extended up to life imprisonment. Minimum 10 up to life imprisonment. Now the question is this particular person who has been convicted of the child rape case here, is this person a public servant or not? That was the debate actually here. Is this person a public servant or not? And here comes the technicality. POCSO Act doesn't define who is a public servant. Is the point clear to all of you? Do let me know right now. The POCSO Act doesn't define who is a public servant. What does the POCSO simply say? Under the POCSO, that is section 2 of POCSO Act basically states that in case the definitions are not provided under this act, then you can use the definitions which have been provided under IPC, under CRPC, under Juvenile Justice Act, and under Information Technology Act. I'll repeat it again. Understand the technicality here. The POCSO Act doesn't define who is actually a public servant. The act simply says this definition you can simply pick it up from the IPC, CRPC, Juvenile Justice Act, and Information Technology Act. And it so happens that under all these particular acts except one, there is no definition or the coverage provided for a public servant. Who is a public servant has not been defined under these laws except one, that is Indian Penal Code under IPC. Under IPC, there is section 21. There is section 21 of IPC. It defines who is a public servant. Right? It defines who is a public servant. The court simply says even when I look at the definition of who is a public servant under section 21 of IPC, the state legislative assemblies, that is state legislative assemblies, the members of the state legislative assemblies are not covered under this. I'll repeat the statement. The members of the state legislative assemblies, the MLAs, are not covered under the definition of section 21, which defines who is a public servant. Is everybody able to understand? Which means the Delhi High Court simply says, under POCSO, who is a public servant? Not defined. Not defined. Which means this MLA who has been convicted should not be punished under section 5, should be punished under section 4. And even before the punishment was given, the order was issued by the court, Delhi court. Even before the order of life imprisonment was issued by the Delhi court, under section 4, what was the punishment given? Minimum 7 years. The punishment given was minimum 7 years, which later was amended to minimum 10 years. So the Delhi High Court simply says he cannot be considered as a public servant. And right before the amendment, it was having a punishment of minimum 7 years. This person has already spent more than 7 years in the jail. The person has spent already more than 7 years, which means, right, he is eligible for bail now. He is eligible for bail. And that is the precise reason the bail order or the bail has been granted to this ex-MLA. Is everybody able to understand the technical ground on which the bail has been given by the Delhi court? CBI yesterday has given a statement. They are going to appeal against the bail order. They are going to appeal against this particular bail order in the higher court. But in addition to that, please remember, there was a plea with the court. Right? There was a plea with the court. Plea in the sense, the plea stated that who is a public servant, including MLA, is covered under the Prevention of Corruption Act, PCA. MLAs are covered as a public servant under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Please consider this person as a public servant under the POCSO as well. But the Delhi High Court simply said, or Delhi bench simply said, no. We can't automatically extend the definition to cover this MLA as a public servant or ex-MLA, because he was MLA when he committed the crime. So you can't simply extend this particular definition to cover the person under the, right, let's say the section 5 of the POCSO. Automatic extension cannot be done. So argument here is two things. One, can the court go beyond the scope of what is given in these kind of provisions? In many cases, they have done it. And second, is it not the time for the government to make these particular provisions much more less ambiguous? Think of it. Is it not the government's duty to make these particular provisions much more clearer so that you cannot be considered as a convict, right? You cannot be considered as a public servant under the Prevention of Corruption Act. That is, you are involved in the corruption. You are considered as a public servant. But you are involved in a heinous crime such as, right, let's say raping a child. You are not considered as a public servant. So it is basically a call for the government to make changes, to make these particular provisions much more clearer, much more less ambiguous. Done. Let me go forward now. Zelensky reveals latest version of US-Ukraine plan to end Russian war. This is an update. Earlier, I hope all of you have been following. Even I have discussed this multiple times. Earlier, USA, right after the negotiations with, let's say the Russian side, came out with 28-point plan, 28-point peace plan. Against this, now a 20-point plan has been proposed by Ukraine along with USA. Right? Ukraine along with USA now have come out with a 20-point plan. What are the important points here? The most important ones. Again, you don't have to remember all of it for a simple reason. You don't know whether Russia will accept this peace plan or not. Simple. Under this, there is a plan to basically de-escalate. Right now, the Donbas region, that is a point of conflict. Most important point, Donbas region. Donbas region, 90% of it is occupied by Russia. They want the complete Donbas region transferred to Russia. according to this particular proposal, Donbas region will be completely demilitarized. Demilitarized. Completely. Ukraine forces will withdraw, and by the same distance, even the Russian forces should withdraw. And this Donbas region now will be developed as an economic zone. That is the first very important proposal. Second very important proposal, the security guarantees. The security guarantees. According to this particular plan, the security guarantees to Ukraine will be provided on the lines of Article 5 of NATO. On the lines of Article 5 of NATO, the security guarantee will be provided by USA, will be provided by NATO members as well as the European signatories. These three groups will have to provide security guarantee, which essentially means attack on Ukraine in the future, if at all this is signed. Attack on Ukraine will be considered as attack on all these signatories, and they will come together to attack Russia. If at all it is signed and Russia attacks Ukraine in the future. Security guarantees. The third one is the military size. Military size. One of the demands of Russia was the military of Ukraine should be cut down to bare minimum. At the peace time, under this particular plan, 8 lakh soldiers will be allowed with Ukraine. In the peace time, 8 lakh soldiers. 8 lakh soldiers will be allowed. In addition to that, there is also a nuclear power plant. A nuclear power plant which is now under the control of Russia. What Ukraine has basically stated is, this particular nuclear power plant should be transferred and it will be jointly managed by it will be jointly managed by Ukraine as well as USA. So these are some of the very important points under the 20-point plan which has now been put forward by Ukraine, which has been accepted by USA. We will have to wait and see what will be the reply from Russia, whether they will accept it or reject it. Next important article, dowry, a cross-cultural evil. The Supreme Court has issued a directive in order to control the instances of dowry cases in India. In this particular case, what has happened is a particular person or a family, right? The girl from this particular family has been married off to a higher level in terms of caste, of course. In terms of caste to a higher level, right? Family. That family has demanded more dowry, right? And ultimately, this has led to the death of the woman. This you must have seen in multiple movies as well as multiple instances where generally the assumption is that the woman has to be married or the girl has to be married to an upper caste. Why? The movement in the upper caste is good because the woman will belong to an upper caste, the children will also belong to the upper caste, etc. etc. This is right. In fact, please understand, in case of India, there is a Dowry Prohibition Act. Dowry Prohibition Act. Despite having a Dowry Prohibition Act, right, there have been multiple instances where, right, in fact, even in the society, you must have seen people accept dowry, people pay dowry, etc. Now, Supreme Court of India has issued certain directives. Focus on the directives by the Supreme Court. The states as well as the union government should consider changing the educational curriculum across all the levels. It should be taught to the children. It should be taught to everyone that taking dowry and giving dowry, both are not correct. Both are illegal. And whenever you take dowry or give dowry, essentially you're trying to justify the fact or justify an archaic practice which is illegal today, that somebody belongs to a higher class and somebody belongs to a lower class in terms of caste in India. Right? In fact, the Supreme Court says it is violative of multiple, right, let's say the principles which are embodied in the Indian Constitution, especially against Article 14. It is against Article 14. So argument is, can we introduce this concept of, right, prohibiting dowry, making it illegal, right, etc. in the educational curriculum? That's the first one. Second one, appointment of dowry prohibition officers. You will have to appoint a dowry prohibition officers, right? And the information of dowry prohibition officers should be publicly available. Only then the people will understand how do we prevent the cases of people taking and giving dowry. For example, when you go to a bank, the banking ombudsman, the information regarding the ombudsman, the office of ombudsman, the phone number, etc., all of that is displayed. In the same way, appoint these dowry prohibition officers and display their information in the public. Police officers and judicial officers who are dealing with the dowry cases should be trained, should undergo sensitization. A lot of times, either they know, or they know and they will be least bothered. They have come across these cases, they do not understand what action they should take, or even they are part of the problem in multiple cases. So they should be sensitized against all of this. And finally, the high courts, all the high courts should take into consideration the dowry cases and speedily resolve these particular dowry cases. These are the directions which have been issued by the Supreme Court in the context of dowry cases. Is everybody okay? Please do let me know. Those who are present in the session, please do let me know. Everybody is okay with the discussion so far? No answer. Okay, last two articles, small articles. We will be able to finish it very soon. Okay. PESA Mahotsav turns into a melting pot of cultural and cuisine. Please understand what is PESA. PESA stands for Panchayat's Extension to the Scheduled Areas. PESA, Panchayat's Extension to Scheduled Areas. That is basically, we have amended the constitution and we have allowed local governance. With constitutional amendment, we have promoted the local governance, in fact. But despite having these kind of, let's say, the constitutional amendments, there was a need to provide for local governance, especially to the regions where there is a presence of scheduled population. So that is the reason back in the 1996, the government of India implemented PESA Act. And under the PESA Act, we basically promote, or the president has to notify certain regions where scheduled population is very high. There is a significant presence of the scheduled population. It has to be notified, and local governance will be promoted through various, let's say, provisions under the PESA Act. Now, very recently, the PESA Mahotsav has been conducted in Visakhapatnam. Please remember the name of the place, can be asked in the preliminary examination. Okay. So, PESA Mahotsav for 2 days, 23 and 24th, has been conducted in Visakhapatnam. Okay. Finally, last article. SC orders on Aravali. Center has told the states to enforce the apex court orders on Aravalis. The states where Aravali is present, for example, Rajasthan. Okay, Avantika Pandey says Dilip Singh Bhuria committee, very good. Yes, the concept of PESA was implemented with the recommendation or after the recommendation of Bhuria committee. Correct. Okay, so center has sent a notice to all these particular states where Aravalis is present and has asked the states to implement the orders of the Supreme Court of India. Now listen to me very carefully. First and foremost, Supreme Court of India in the month of January has basically now stated it will hear the case again. It was there in Hindustan Times newspaper today. It will hear the cases again that is associated with Aravalis in the month of January 2026. But right now, what is the order here? No new licenses should be issued. No new licenses for mining should be issued. Point number one. Point number two, the licenses which have already been issued, those mining companies, are they abiding by the provisions of the law or not? Are they following all the guidelines or not? That is the duty of the state government. The state government should ensure that these are following all the provision, for example, related to, let's say, pollution. And if these are not abiding by them, action should be taken by the state government. That is the second very important point. Third very important point, I've told you two. Third one, the duty of preparing management plan. The management plan for sustainable mining. The duty of preparing management plan for sustainable mining has been given to the ICFRE. What is ICFRE? Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education. I'll repeat, Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education. So the government of India has stated that ICFRE will be responsible for preparing a management plan for sustainable mining. These are the three very important points associated with this article that you need to note. Apart from that, what was the earlier 100-meter guideline, etc., etc., already all of you know that. Done? So these are certain important articles, the concepts, as well as the questions associated with the articles that I wanted to discuss with you people in today's session. Any doubts, any confusions, do let me know now. If you have liked the discussion, do not forget to hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, do it right now. Harsha, sir, 17th and 21st December PPT not uploaded. I'll tell the backend. Don't worry. Huh. Any other doubts? Done then. Thank you. Take care. I'll ensure that the PPTs are uploaded very soon on the channel. I'd see you tomorrow sharp at 10 a.m.